we really didn't have time in our last session to chat about John Mark, so this is kind of a special study on John Mark. John Mark, or just known as Mark, is the author of the book of Mark, and John Mark wrote the gospel between AD 55 and 59. There could be a veiled reference to John Mark in Mark 14:51 through 52. In that passage, a young man roused from his sleep on the night that Jesus was arrested attempts to follow Jesus, and the mob who had Jesus in custody attempted to seize him. The young man escapes and flees in the night, but according to the record, he remains anonymous, and he decided to leave his garment behind. So John Mark is our first streaker. So he's a kid from the 60s, literally 60. John Mark is often called Mark, the author of Mark. He's a believer in the early church, and we see him in the book of Acts, Acts 12:12. His mother's name is Mary, whose house had been a place for believers to meet and pray. Later, Mark is mentioned as a companion to Barnabas and Paul during their first missionary journey, and we'll look at that later at Acts 12:25. And we found out in Colossians 4:10 that Mark is the cousin of Barnabas, and Barnabas is the one that encouraged him. Young people need to grow, and they need encouragers. They need people that will take them alongside and mentor them, and that's what was Barnabas' job. He was a helper with Paul and Barnabas in Acts 13:5 on the journey. However, he didn't stay. He went home. He deserted them. And then as far as Paul was concerned, we don't need this worthless person anymore. Later, Paul called him that he was worth something. He really proved himself. So they went to the island of Cyprus, and it wasn't real fruitful. One main conversion is recorded. They had a strong demonic presence there. It's most likely John Mark was discouraged. He didn't see, where this was going. So that's probably why he went home. Either that or he got homesick. Sometime later, after Paul and Barnabas had returned from their first journey, Paul expressed a desire to go back out and strengthen the churches. You notice that make disciples involves a follow-up. And Barnabas agreed, and he wanted to take John Mark with him, and Paul refused. And so they split in two, and Paul took Silas, and Barnabas took Mark, and he was going to spend more time mentoring this young man. Near the end of Paul's life, Paul sent a request to Timothy from the Roman prison: get Mark, bring him with you. He is helpful to the ministry. 2 Timothy 4:11. Obviously, John Mark had matured through the years, had become a faithful servant of the Lord, and Paul recognized his progress.